Hello, welcome to The Rational Live. I'm your host, David Dole. It's December 4th, 2020. I literally just ran to the chair. One day I'll be able to hire somebody. This is why. RationalNational.com/join. Support the show. That's the Patreon page. You can also join on YouTube or support me through PayPal or Streamlabs. Various links below the video. Forgot to tweet out or retweet this. Just give me half a second. All right, I've caught my breath. How's everybody doing today? Gonna get into these stories shortly. Let me give you a little preview of what's up. Here we go. CNBC turns into a wrestling match. I'll get to that in a bit. Florida GOPer commits voter fraud to own the libs. Get to that story. Jamaal Bowman schools CNN on defund the police. Great clip coming up there. Michele Bachmann asks God for a second Trump term. Can't wait to share that video. And a great piece of legislative news. House passes cannabis decriminalization. Shockingly, but of course it has to pass the Senate anyways. I'll get into that discussion. And also who opposed the bill in terms of Democrats that opposed it. I'll be naming names. And also I have not, shockingly, maybe to me, not to you, but shockingly, I have not yet watched this Ben Shapiro meltdown over Elliot Page. I'm going to play that, maybe make it into a clip later, see how it goes. But he's always good for a laugh. And I'm also bringing back an old segment I used to do that I have not done for quite some time. Tweets of the week. So I threw this together at the last minute, and but I found some great tweets I want to share for the tweets of the week segment. Also, there's another segment I didn't really properly prep, but if we have some time, if I'm feeling it, I'll get to that as well. All right. Jesus, still catching my breath. Okay. Let me start. I was going to start with something else, but let me actually start with the bigger piece of news since this just happened. Also, of course, in case you don't know, I'm the only person here. So between segments, there's a bit of a pause so I can prep the next segment. Just talk amongst yourselves in the chat. Do whatever until I prep the next story. Luckily, this one's already prepped, so not much waiting here. The House surprisingly did something great. Yes, they passed cannabis decriminalization. Now, of course, it's not going to pass the Senate, but I'll get to more of that in a second. First, let me show you the vote totals here. Public citizen tweeting out, breaking the House just passed a bill to decriminalize marijuana at the federal level, a historic moment. So, taking a look at the numbers here, see it's 222 Democratic votes saying yay to 6 nay. I'll get to these 6 in a minute. Republicans 5 agreeing to it, saying yes. Most of them here, 158 saying no, and 1 independent. I believe that is Justin Amash, who was Republican, is now Libertarian. He's that independent yay vote. But here it is, passing the House. Let me give you a little more details on the actual bill. So the MORE Act would remove marijuana from the Controlled Substances Act and eliminate criminal penalties for individuals who manufacture, distribute, or possess marijuana. It also includes creating a process to remove prior convictions, known as expungement, and conduct sentencing review hearings for federal cannabis offenses. So it's not just decriminalizing it, but also looking to expunge past convictions that were nonviolent, which, of course, has to be part of any decriminalization effort when it comes to marijuana. Now, let me show you the popularity of this, showing you how public opinion does not reflect Congress in general. The fact that it's taken this long to back this. So support for marijuana inches up to new high of 68%. This was on November 9th, 2020. You see here, it's had a majority support for quite some time. Since around 2011, a majority of people have supported marijuana legalization. So this is, by the way, just again, this is decriminalization, what they did. Not even legalization, but legalization has now 68% support. So, and by the way, this applies across the board. I've done breakdowns before showing you when it comes to single-payer healthcare or government-run healthcare has a majority of support. Wealth tax has a majority of support. Higher tax on corporations has a majority of support. Congress just does not represent the will of the people. They represent their special interests, their donors. And this is another example of that, why it took this long for this to happen. Now, let me show you who exactly did not support this. So, and who did? So, Republicans who voted for the bill are Florida Rep. Matt Gaetz, the bill's co-sponsor, as well as Brian Mast of Florida, Tom McClintock of California, Denver Riggleman of Virginia, Don Young of Alaska, and the Democrats that voted against it, Sherry Bustos, Dan Lipinski, Henry Cuellar, Connor Lamb, Chris Papas, and Colin Peterson. So, just all of these people, I should say, in terms of the Democrats at least, why? Why are these people Democrats? So it really shows you that when you have even Republicans, and Matt Gaetz being a co-sponsor of the bill, again, Matt Gaetz has horrible positions on the vast majority of things, but this is just the correct thing to do, to at the very least decriminalize. Forget about legalization, which should also happen, but decriminalize is the bare minimum, and still you're having Democrats vote against it. Now, as I said, of course, this is not going to pass the Senate. There is the potential, I guess, if Democrats are able to win both Senate seats in the Georgia runoffs, they would have a 50-50 Senate, in which case you have Kamala Harris being the tiebreaker. But that also assumes that every Democrat would vote for it, which people like Joe Manchin, I don't think he would. Then again, you could also argue maybe there would be, several, 1 or 2 or 3 votes from Republicans that would actually back passing this. But again, we're going to have to wait and see. For now, this seems more like a signal of what Democrats want to do as opposed to what they actually can and will be able to get through. But a few more things here. Chuck Schumer celebrating the House legalizing weed. Right now, Chuck Schumer is incredibly afraid of a primary challenge in 2022. So he is doing whatever he can to appear as progressive as possible. So he will back things like that. He's also discussed how he wants Joe Biden to get rid of or cancel up to $50,000 of student debt, which is a position he didn't hold before. But again, Schumer's trying to appear a little more left-wing than he actually is. But hey, if he actually gets any of this done and it's not just, posturing, then good for him. Then he would deserve to keep a seat if he actually gets any of it done. But if it's just rhetoric and doesn't actually fight for it, then it all means nothing. Last thing here. So this comes on the heels of this bit of news. A UN commission has voted to remove cannabis from a list that categorized it as one of the most dangerous drugs, a move that recognizes the plant as having medicinal value. The science has shown this for decades. At least 60 years, if not longer. 60 years is when this actually came into effect, 60 years ago. And at the time, the science was there to show you that this is not a dangerous substance. But still, of course, they pushed to pretend that it was this dangerous thing. Then all these countries outlawed marijuana. And now finally, the UN recognizing the science and pushing to remove it from the dangerous category. Also, I got to mention here as a Canadian, Canada legalized marijuana now 3 years ago, 2 years ago. Honestly, I've lost track. But I've lost track because nothing crazy happened. Of course, there was all this fear mongering. Oh, it's going to somehow destroy our culture. It's going to. Honestly, I'm not even sure what the arguments were against it because there are no actual arguments against decriminalizing or legalizing marijuana. But Canada legalized marijuana and everything's fine. And on top of that, generating tax revenue because of it. So this is just a no-brainer. And of course, again, when discussing decriminalization or legalization, always have to focus on expunging records of people that are in jail for nonviolent offenses over possession or what have you when it comes to marijuana. Absolutely ridiculous. You got to expunge those records and free those people. All right. Back to this. I'm going to prep the next story. I'm all over I'm frazzled today. Can you all notice that? I'm just frazzled. A chat has come in, yes. Super chats as well, of course. Help support the show with super chats. So Rai Nowicki super chats, with both parties going through a party civil war, do you think the establishment of both will unite to fight off? Let me read this again. With both parties going through a party civil war, do you think the establishment of both will unite to fight off the MAGA chuds and Justice Democrats? I mean, that's kind of what they're doing. Yes. So that's also what they've been doing the entire time. You always have these so-called, we really got to get rid of the term moderate Democrat or moderate Republican. All that means is corporate Democrat or corporate Republican. That's all those terms are. Now, though, to be fair, I'm not sure if an anti-corporate Republican actually exists. As far as I know, they're all pro-corporate. But moderate, this term moderate is just not the proper label for these people. But yeah, absolutely. I think they will do that. I think they're going to unite to fight, largely against the rational side here, which is the Justice Democrat side, the side based in science, based in the will of the people, based in the working class message. They're going to fight against that. I have no issue with them fighting against, the MAGA chuds and some of the loons on that side. But when it comes to fighting the working class, yeah, of course, Congress is all about that. Gina McGrath says Dan Lipinski is getting replaced. That's right. That's right. I thought that came to me while I was reading that, but I wasn't completely sure. But thanks for bringing that up, Junie. Dan Lipinski is getting replaced by progressive Marie Newman in Congress, so that's good news. So luckily, Democrats didn't need his vote to be able to pass this, so ultimately it didn't matter. But Lipinski is, as far as I understand, the most conservative, if not the most. I mean, it's between him and Cuellar, the most conservative Democrats in the House. And Cuellar almost replaced in a primary challenge as well, but ended up winning that one. All right. Thank you, Junie. Let me prep this next story. Now, this is the part where there's radio silence for a couple minutes. So, actually, you know what? Maybe not that much. Only got a couple links here. But chat amongst yourselves as I prep this. Also, you see, I'm drinking water today. I don't have a mug of unidentified substance, so maybe I should stick with the water. I feel like it keeps my energy levels up. Also, in a bit of news that nobody cares about, I beat Spider-Man a couple days ago. Spider-Man Miles Morales. Fantastic game. Check it out. Insomniac did it again. One of my favorite developers. Ratchet and Clank, Spider-Man, they just they kill it every time. All right. Is that it? Okay. I think I'm good. All right. I hear more chats coming in. I'll get to those after this next segment. What just happened? No, I almost screwed up. Hold up. That was weird. Okay. There are two reasons that people decide to watch a CNBC clip. Either they're defending the wealthy to the point of absurdity, and it's worth me covering, or it's because the hosts are yelling at each other. This is the latter. So let me show you this clip from CNBC. This is Rick Santelli and Andrew Ross Sorkin having a yelling match over restaurant shutdowns. Check this out.
I think many of these governors are intelligent people, and they love their families, which they've taken out into restaurants. Therefore, there is actually and should be an ongoing debate as to You know, why a parking lot for a big box store like by my house is jam-packed. Not one parking spot open. Why are those people any safer than a restaurant with plexiglass? I just don't get it. And I think there's a million of these questions that could be asked, and I think it's really sad that when we look at the service sector and all the discussions we've had about job losses, that particular dynamic isn't studied more, isn't worked more. We don't put more people in the room and try to figure out ways so that these service sector employees and employers could all come back in a safer way. You can't tell me that shutting down, which is the easiest answer, is necessarily the only answer.
Rick, I just as a public health and public service announcement for the audience, the difference between a big box retailer.
Who is this?
Hold on. The difference between it's Andrew.
Who else?
The difference between a big box retailer. Hold on. The difference between a big box retailer and a restaurant, or frankly even a church, are so different. It's unbelievable. Going into a big box retailer,
I disagree.
You're wearing a mask.
You can have your thoughts, and I can have mine.
You're required to wear a mask.
I disagree.
It's science. I'm sorry. It's science. If you're wearing a mask, it's a different story.
500 people at a Lowe's aren't any safer than 150 people in a restaurant that holds 600. I don't believe it. Sorry. Don't believe it. And I live in an area where there's a lot of restaurants that have fought back and they don't have any problems. And they're open.
Okay. You don't have to believe it. But let me just say this. You're doing a disservice to the viewer because the viewers need to understand it.
You are doing a disservice to the viewer. You are. You are.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I would like to keep our viewers as healthy as humanly possible. The idea of packing people into restaurants.
I think our viewers are smart enough to make part of those decisions on their own.
Completely different
things. I don't think that I'm much smarter than all the viewers like some people do.
Can I?
All right. I almost feel like this kind of stuff is not staged, but they enjoy doing this because this is the only time anybody watches CNBC. It's when something like this happens. These two blowing up at each other. Now, I'll get to who I side with here in a second, but first things first. People should have real financial support to help get themselves through this pandemic. A universal basic income, a paycheck guarantee. Americans have none of that crap. They need some actual help. So, apart from this discussion about shutdowns, people need help to get through this time. You look at other countries. Canada, $2,000 a month. Canada isn't even the greatest example. There are a lot better examples, but it's one example. There was $2,000 a month, the CERB, for anyone that needed it, lost their job or had to stay home because of COVID-19. But you look in Europe, Germany, France, countries like that, where they covered paychecks in Germany up to 87% for full-time work, up to 100% for part-time work. That is real help. Meanwhile, in America, they're dumping all this cash onto large companies, and somehow that's supposed to help people. Now, getting to the, I guess, the debate here, there is a clear difference between restaurants and retailers. You don't go to a retailer for an hour and a half, breathing recycled air the entire time, taking your mask off for most of it. It's clearly a very different situation than going to it's clearly very different going to a retailer than it is going to a restaurant. In a retailer, you show up 5-10 minutes, your mask is on the entire time, you buy what you need, and you leave. And there's always, there's usually limits on how many people are actually allowed in the store at a time. With a restaurant, I mean, it's just, these smaller businesses, especially these restaurants, they need real financial help to keep going. So my guess here is maybe Santelli has investments in some restaurant. Maybe he knows somebody that runs a restaurant, and this is why he's so animated about this, because any rational person can see that there is a clear difference. At the same time, of course, the people that run these restaurants, especially these small companies, they need financial support to cover the rent, to cover the paychecks for their employees. They need that financial support to be able to keep going. That's the real issue here. It's not who is shut down, who isn't. It's that these places need actual help to keep going. Now, one last thing here in regards to Santelli. Jordan Ewell tweeted this out. In March, CNBC personality and former hedge fund cretin Rick Santelli suggested we give everyone coronavirus to protect the economy. Watch this quick clip.
Think about how the world would be if you tried to
quarantine everybody because of the generic type flu. Now, I'm not saying this is the generic.
For the live audience here, since I'll cut this out later, I'm just going to boost your audio because it's hard to hear this. Watch your ears. This may be a lot louder.
Think about how the world would be if you tried to quarantine everybody because of the generic type flu. Now, I'm not saying this is the generic type flu, but maybe we'd be just better off if we gave it to everybody, and then in a month it would be over, because the mortality rate of this probably isn't going to be any different if we did it that way than the long-term picture. But the difference is we're wreaking havoc on global and domestic economy.
So this is clearly nuts. This guy should not be an authoritative voice on any network. He obviously could not think rationally when it came to the restaurants. He clearly was not thinking rationally when he said that everybody should get the virus. You're looking at what that situation basically is right now with the amount of death that people are seeing. And again, it's not even just about the death. It's about the long-term health impacts. Even if you survive COVID-19, there can be long-term damage to your brain, to your lungs, to your heart. So the idea that if everyone just gets it now and we'll be better later is not true, obviously. All right. There we go. Let me grab some chats and get to the next story in a minute here. Wow, YouTube's actually working properly. Look at this. I can actually access all the chats under my stream. This is rare. Carson Fijal says, thoughts on MSNBC. Fijal sounds kind of Portuguese. Are you Portuguese? Fijal. Thoughts on MSNBC fawning over Manitoba's Brian Pallister. As a Manitoban, I think anyone fawning over Pallister right now hasn't seen the big picture of his overall inept and Trumpian COVID response. I did not see any of this, so I have no idea. I wish I can give you my thoughts. I did not see them fawning over Pallister, and I don't know enough about what's happening in Manitoba to give you any educated thoughts on that. Sorry. Radzoso says, while the next story is being prepared, talk amongst yourselves. I'll give you a topic. A pineapple is neither a pine nor an apple. Discuss. Thank you, Radzoso. Keep bringing in those questions for the next pause. Very helpful. Adam Bryceland says, hey, David, man, how's life treating you? Well, thank you, Adam, for the kind question. Life's doing fine. Things are going, look, I can't complain. I work from home, so that alone, I'm clearly a lot more privileged than most people are in terms of life during COVID. So I can't complain at all. But when it's your job to cover politics, there are good days and bad days because there is so much shit all the time. It can wear on you mentally. And I felt a little of that this week for sure. Today, right now, I'm feeling a little better for whatever reason. Yeah, there's ups and downs, but overall, I can't complain. Nobu Nuggets says, I appreciate you informing all of us. You keep me up to date and entertained at work. By the way, you're looking really good. Love the hair. Thank you. Thank you so much. Jonathan Fulp says, water regulates the blood flow, bro. Well, there we go. Then it's perfect to keep drinking the water. As opposed to what is usually in my mug, which is not coffee. Can you drink on YouTube? I feel like you should be able to, and I don't, I don't want to say I ever was, but I've heard mixed opinions on that. Carson Fajal, back again, saying Pallister did nothing over the summer to prepare for the second wave, and his health minister publicly vilified and attacked doctors who warned of how bad the second wave would be. Thank you for the context there. Also follows up saying, hold up, just lost my place. Follows up saying he's only shifted the other way to overcompensate now that he has the lowest approval rating and highest COVID numbers in all of Canada. There you go. Even worse than Alberta? I know last week I reported on Alberta. It was as of that reporting, Alberta was the worst. But I guess I wouldn't be surprised if it's changed since then. Goku Just Saying says, I bet that guy is undiagnosed manic bipolar, and this is the only job he could get where yelling sounds normal. Quote, don't tell me. I'm not going to psychoanalyze him, but I don't know, whatever. They know it gets the eyeballs. I think they played up a little bit. So regardless of why he yelled, it's going to get them some attention. Samantha Sider says Pelosi needs to go. No empathy for people struggling. Yeah, so I wasn't unfortunately able to properly prepare a story on what is happening right now with Pelosi and the deal or no deal when it comes to the stimulus and the pandemic. I'll need a weekend to process that. But yeah, basically Pelosi's strategy of holding out didn't pay off. Shockingly, Nancy Pelosi is horrible at strategy. Who knew? And Democrats in the House that are actually good, like AOC or Katie Porter or Pramila Jayapal, Jamaal Bowman, Cori Bush, are going to have to keep fighting Pelosi over the next couple of years, over the next 4 years, if she stays that long, to get anything through. Queen Enchantment says, just wow. I never knew people could be this ignorant. At this point, I just laugh. I hate it here. You have to laugh sometimes. That's the thing. When I cover this stuff, you can't take it all too seriously. Of course, look, all of this impacts real lives. But when it comes to I imagine you're referring to the CNBC clip. You know, when it comes to idiots on television spewing bullshit, especially on CNBC, where there isn't really much of an audience, you can't take it too seriously. Carson Fajal says, no, it's Polish, fam. Oh, okay, I was wrong. Maybe it's the way I'm saying Fajal. Maybe it's not Fajal. Maybe it's Fajal. Kumari Carter, message retracted, but thank you for the super chat. MC Dano says, I don't understand why the governor didn't just cancel rent/mortgage across the board and give people monthly stimulus checks. I think you mean, sorry, I said governor. I think you meant government. Don't know why the government didn't just cancel rent mortgage across the board and give people monthly. Yeah. Because they don't care about the people. That's your answer. That isn't who they work for. Kumari Carter says, thoughts on Obama saying AOC needs a bigger platform in the DNC. I did not see him say that. I'll have to check that out. Everything else coming out of Obama recently has been trash. So I'm surprised that if he did say this, that he said that. But I'll have to check that out. One last chat before I move on to the next story. Nobu Nugget says this dude wants to be the 21st century Typhoid Mary, COVID Mary. Yeah. All right. Let me prep this next story as you chat amongst yourselves. Hopefully, who was it? Radzosa will give you something else to discuss while I prep this next one. Several quotes here. That's why it's taking so long, but almost ready. All right. Florida attorney Bill Price is being investigated after he both attempted to commit voter fraud and told others how to do it during a Facebook Live video. Now, of course, this is illegal, and I'll get to exactly what he may be facing in a bit here. But this story was broken by Nicole Carr of WSB TV in Atlanta. She tweeted out that this morning, the Florida Bar Association confirmed they have launched an investigation. Actually, sorry, this is the wrong tweet to start with. Luckily, I can edit this later. Nicole Carr tweeted out, quote, "If that means changing your address for the next 2 months, so be it. I'm doing that. I'm moving to Georgia. Our 6th investigation reveals deleted video, a Florida attorney telling GOP members how to move to Georgia, vote in runoffs. It's illegal. There's more and an investigation." So we'll get to more on that in a second. This is a quick clip. I haven't been able to find the entire, I think it's an hour long Facebook Live that he had here. But this is a quick clip showing you what Bill Price was saying.
Have to do whatever it takes. And if that means changing your address for the next 2 months, so be it. I'm doing that. I'm moving to Georgia. Have to do whatever.
Now, he has since claimed that he was being tongue-in-cheek. But according to Nicole Carr, who's watched the entire video, no, he was telling people how to do this, and in fact also did it himself. So some details on that here. Price told the group he's moving to his brother's address in Hiram, Georgia. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. In order to register to vote in the January runoff. He repeats and spells and his brother's name and address as members of the group jot it down. They can be heard mumbling the address in the background while some write, quote, "We can truly register at this address?" One woman asks. "Sure," Price answers, adding they have to plan to show a move. They have to plan to show a move, suggesting they have mail sent there. Quote, "And it can be anywhere in the state of Georgia you can register," another woman asks. "So if you've got cousins, dogs, cats that live somewhere else, it doesn't need to be one particular county?" "Yep," Price answers. "This is going to be a statewide election on January 5th. I'm going to be voting for Kelly Loeffler." In the recording, his voice indicates a question as he mispronounces the senator's last name, and David Perdue. More here. He says in the video, "That's what needs to be done. If you don't want to do it, fine. Might as well move to Venezuela now," he said. Get used to that lifestyle, because that's what's coming. When Carr reached Price by email Tuesday evening, he denied he was serious about the move. First, before I get to the last piece here, Venezuela. God, it's amazing how stupid people are. Maybe he doesn't believe this and he's just saying it to try and get people to commit voter fraud, to vote for Republicans in Georgia. But man, the idea that Joe Biden somehow relates to Venezuela. I mean, this is the comical cartoon idea of what socialism is. Venezuela is not a proper representation of what socialism is, but again, that's a whole other discussion. But just all this fear mongering around trying to get people to commit voter fraud. I mean, he is encouraging here essentially people to commit voter fraud that I will get to, would face hard time. So in a Wednesday afternoon statement, Georgia's Deputy Secretary of State Jordan Fuchs confirmed the office would be exploring the felony charges tied to fraudulent voter registration in Georgia. For weeks, Georgia officials have warned that registering to vote with no attempt to stay in Georgia can be punishable by a felony charge that can carry up to a 10-year sentence and a $100,000 fine. A 10-year sentence and a $100,000 fine. That is potentially now what this man is facing because of what he did. By the way, of course, I mean, it goes without saying, this is a Trump voter. This is a Republican. The same party claiming that there's all this voter fraud going on. There have only been instances of Republicans doing this. There was another one I covered in Pennsylvania. A man in Pennsylvania attempted to vote twice, tried voting for his dead mother, admitted to police that he knew what he was doing, that yes, he wanted to vote twice. Find me the people that are doing this for Joe Biden. I mean, let's be honest. Nobody is that excited about Joe Biden to try and vote twice for him. But also, it's pretty damn stupid to try to do this. Not only is it illegal, but it also gets caught every time. It is incredibly easy to catch voter fraud. There is no voter fraud going on. There was no election fraud. Donald Trump pushed that as an entire ruse to try and raise a ton of money. He raised $170 million for his new PAC based on the idea that he was going to investigate election fraud. Of course, there's no election fraud. Nothing's being done. He lost the election. Biden won. And now he's going to be able to use that money either to funnel into his own companies and or give to GOP politicians and or fund his own potential run for 2024 so he can fly all over the country for 4 years giving speeches at rallies. So it really is amazing how many people fall into this crap. One last thing here. Nicole Carr tweeting out, this morning the Florida Bar Association confirmed they have launched an investigation into Bill Price, the Panama City attorney at the center of the voter fraud investigation earlier this week. So not only is he facing potential jail time, he's also potentially getting, or will no longer potentially be an attorney. So clearly a lesson here. Don't be stupid. All right. Disbarred. That was the word. Like, what does it mean to not be an attorney anymore? Oh, yeah, you get disbarred. I forgot that. All right. Let me grab some more chats. And prep the next story. Where's my stuff? All right. Where was I? Jacan says, keep up the good work, David. Thank you. Stephen Parmy says, with reference to an earlier super chat, Dems have a reduced majority in the House. It does, however, boost the importance of progressives. When do you think they should start blocking bad bills? Immediately, or once it's sworn in. Obviously, the new Congress isn't there yet, but yeah, immediately, obviously. So your point is exactly on, and I've discussed this before. In the House, Democrats, the only seats lost by Democrats in the House were of conservative Democrats, like pro-corporate Democrats. And Democrats that won new seats, like Jamaal Bowman, like Cori Bush, taking over for Democrats that were ultra-conservative. You now have here a larger working class base in the Democratic House and a smaller pro-corporate conservative Democratic lawmakers in the House. So we're going to see a much larger discussion around some of these issues, like Medicare for all. Why not put up a vote for Medicare for all? Why not hold back on a bill that maybe Pelosi wants and say, hey, we're not going to back this unless you give us a vote on Medicare for all. So we could potentially see some of that, and I am really looking forward to it, especially on some issues. Jamaal Bowman was discussing this week on Benjamin Dixon's show, which, by the way, check out Jamaal Bowman's interview on Benjamin Dixon's show. Fantastic. He discusses what he's going to fight for, including reparations, which is a discussion that, Democrats have not had at all. So it's going to be a much different House over the next couple of years with people like Cori Bush and Jamaal Bowman. So, yeah, I'm excited for that. Parker Adelson says, can you do a clip about Gary Chambers Jr., who will announce a run for Congress to take the vacant seat of Cedric Richmond, who joined the Biden team? Let me look into him. Got to look into that. DVDV says Biden equals Venezuela as much as Iraq equals 9/11. Yeah, that's actually a pretty good comparison. All right. Let me prep this next story. I jumped around earlier, so just making sure I didn't miss anything. Speaking of Jamaal Bowman, he's up next. I may need to get more water shortly. You know what? I think I have so much energy right now because I didn't have a big lunch. I had what did I eat? I had a smoothie and leftover salad from last night. That was my lunch. I usually eat a lot more. So maybe I should stop eating so much at lunchtime. I think that's what I've learned. All right. Just about ready here. After having his feed cut during a CNN appearance last week, Congressman-elect Jamaal Bowman is back on CNN, this time informing the CNN audience about what defund the police means, and he does a fantastic job here.
Defund the police. It's bad messaging because it turns people off to the real...
For the live audience, I'm just going to boost your audio a little bit. Okay.
Defund the police. It's bad messaging because it turns people off to the real reforms that you are trying to put forward. What is your response and your take on that? Do you think there's something to that?
Defund the police does not mean abolish the police. It means a dramatic reduction in the number of police in our poor communities, and particularly our poor Black and brown communities. Historically, when our communities have needed jobs, they didn't bring us jobs. They brought us police, and they created a system of mass incarceration. And we live in a country where if you're Black or brown, you're more likely to be killed by police and more likely to be incarcerated and more likely to not afford bail. So we're focusing on this slogan, defund the police, but where are the resources to bring jobs into our communities? Where are the resources to fully fund our public schools? Where are the resources to deal with the issue of housing and food insecurity? We're not talking about any of that. We're worried about a slogan. And lastly, only 5% of police work is focused on violent crimes, rape, homicide, aggravated assault. The other 95% can be handled by other agencies, mental health institutions, domestic violence professionals, etc. So we've been doing policing all wrong for decades. In some cities, 40% of the budget goes toward policing, and police are terrorizing Black and brown communities. The evidence is clear across the country. So we have to do something different and not allow Republicans to flip a talking point on its head and make us respond to it. This is about reimagining our country and building back better in a way that uplifts Black communities and not leaves them oppressed.
Well, I look forward to seeing the kind of legislation you put forward now that you are actually going to be a member of Congress, and how you're going to use your voice in the United States House of Representatives. Thank you so much for joining me. We have a lot more to talk about, and I'm sure we'll be able to do that in the weeks and months ahead.
So first up here, I like that Jamaal Bowman brings up abolish the police, because that is the actual activist position. Abolish the police. Defund the police is the compromise. And all it means, as he discusses, is a reallocation of resources. This is what every lawmaker, this is how every lawmaker should be discussing defund the police. Instead of talking about the slogan and whether or not it works or not, just inform people about what it means, what this activist movement around it is about, why it exists. That's your job as a lawmaker isn't just to, pass bills, it's to inform people. You're a public figure. You have the position, you have the ability to inform people with your voice. This is the mistake that Barack Obama made as well. I covered this this week, where instead of coming out and informing people what defund the police means and why that movement exists, he just goes ahead and stifles the energy for that movement by criticizing the slogan. If you have a voice as big as Barack Obama, you should be embarrassed if you're not using it to inform people. Using it instead to hurt the Democratic base, hurt the energy that is around a policy that makes absolute sense once it's explained to people. Now, again, it's also about, it's not even just about reimagining policing in terms of, using these resources that have been poured into police. I mean, as he discussed there, these budgets are crazy. You see police budgets ballooning while there's been cuts to everything else. But so it's not just about, replacing certain calls with mental health care professionals or domestic violence professionals, but it's about actually looking at where the money's going. Why isn't there being more money poured into public housing or public health generally? So it's about actually looking at where the money is going and if it's helping. Clearly, pouring all of this money into policing while ignoring mental health, ignoring public housing, ignoring education is not working. So there has to be a different approach, and that's what the Defund the Police movement suggests. And also, I've discussed this before. The reason why the slogan is actually great is because it moves the entire conversation to a position where anything to the right of defund the police all of a sudden sounds more reasonable. So if you tell someone, hey, we should defund the police, and they push back and think, oh, that sounds crazy, we're going to have no police anymore, you explain, no, police still exist for responding to violence, or anything where it makes sense to have the police there. But then you explain, all it is reallocating funds away from police. We've seen these police budgets balloon. It's reallocating those funds into other areas. And all of a sudden, that argument sounds more rational because they were freaked out that defund the police meant that you're abolishing police, when in reality, it never meant that. But the point being, it moves the entire conversation to a place where when you actually explain what defund the police means, people are more willing to accept that. And also, one last thing here. Why wasn't there a freak out when Paul Ryan was calling to defund Planned Parenthood? This language has been used by Republicans for years, not just in terms of Planned Parenthood, but for everything. Yet, did you see Republican lawmakers and former presidents like George Bush come out and say, you know what? It's too harsh. We shouldn't be saying defund Planned Parenthood. No, that language, it turns people off. We got to be more careful with how we discuss these issues. No, they just go for the jugular. Why is it that Democrats have to police their language, but Republicans never do? Again, any Democrat pushing back against defund the police is not your friend. They should be out there informing people about what it actually means and discussing why it makes sense. All right. Let me get to prepping the next story. All right, I guess I'll get some chats first. Chomperfly says, drinking on air. YouTube isn't governed by any regulations that prevent it. They make their own rules. But if your video is rebroadcast on FCC regulated media, then it would not be legal air. All right. Yeah, that's the only reason I asked that question is because I thought back to, this is going to be a weird reference, but I thought back to WWE. When Stone Cold Steve Austin would drink on air, and from what I remember, they would always cut away. They would never show him actually drinking the beer on air. They would only show him afterwards when he's like throwing the cans. So I always wondered, why can't someone just drink beer? But since then, don't people drink on air? I don't know. Pretty sure I've seen people drink wine on television, and not just, in a TV show where it's maybe fake wine, but actual wine. Anyways, weird discussion. Moving on. DVDV says, holy effin' SH asterisk. Is Jamaal Bowman impressive? Yes, Jamaal Bowman is incredibly impressive. The man does not hold back. Told you all he'd be a fighter, and he's going to continue being a fighter. There are people out there that doubted it, that thought, oh no, Jamaal Bowman, Cori Bush, once they get in, they're going to, police their language. They're going to be they're going to try and fit in with the rest of the Democrats. No, they are from the working class. They represent the working class. They're going to fight for the working class. They're not going to change. Now, of course, there's always going to be, those, in terms of actually getting anything through, there's always going to be those calculations where, hey, if I support this Pelosi bill that maybe I won't support, she'll put this into that bill, or we'll be able to vote for, say, Medicare for all, for example, even though it's not going to pass, be able to have a vote on it. So there's always going to be those calculations behind the scenes when it comes to what to support, what not to support, in the interest of actually trying to push working class legislation through. But in terms of their messaging and their fight, it's not going to change. Adrian Thomas says, would you consider yourself a 90s baby? Also, does your... That's basically trying to ask me for my age. But no, I'm actually an 80s baby. Though I grew up in the 90s, so I don't know. You know what? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I never really thought about either label, really. Also, does your political involvement expand past The Rational National. So before I started the channel, I ran as a Green Party candidate in Canada. So it I guess started with that, but the show takes up all my time. There's no time for me to do anything else. I spend around 10 to 12 hours every day on the channel. It would not be possible to do anything else. But in terms of the 90s baby, I'll have to continue thinking about that. I guess I'm a 90s baby because I grew up in the 90s. I don't remember the 80s at all. But I am from the 80s, so I'm not sure. All right, let me prep this next story. What do I have here? Michele Bachmann. All right. Oh, my goodness. Always good for a laugh, Michele Bachmann. All right, this is a quick one. I saw this almost right before I went live, so not sure how much I have to really say about this, but we will see. Former U.S. Representative Michele Bachmann went online to ask God to give Trump a second term. This is pure comedy gold. Check this out.
For this moment in the United States, we seriously...
Why do people not know how to turn up the volume? All right, here you go.
For this moment in the United States, we seriously, sincerely cry out to you, confessing our personal sins. We confess the sins of our country as proxies. We ask you, oh God, for deliverance, that our country may continue to know freedom. Lord, would you deliver these races in Georgia, oh Father? Would you deliver various local and state races, Father, that they aren't stolen? Would you give us a true vote? And oh God, I personally ask from myself, Michele Bachmann, Lord, would you allow Donald Trump to have a second term as president of the United States?
This is very sad. Michele Bachmann held public office. It's amazing she could even hold her phone. I'm not against religion. I understand it. It helps a lot of people. There are, Cornel West considers himself to be religious. I think Cornel West is one of the most brilliant philosophers we have. But shit like this, like Cornel West isn't going out there and asking God to put in Bernie Sanders as president. No, he gets out there and he fights for it, and he discusses what he supports and how he wants to see the country move forward. Michele Bachmann is just this is the Looney Tunes side of religion, where they think this does something. I mean, wasn't there a time when Michele Bachmann said that God came to her and told her that she would be president? In fact, I think a lot of people that have run for president have said that about themselves. That God came to me in a dream. God told me, you know what? It's your time. You should run. You can save the country by becoming president. I just don't get it. And when you actually read the Bible, I haven't read it all. I've seen pieces. I grew up Catholic, so I know a bit. But Jesus Christ, if he were alive today, Jesus would be a communist. He would be a communist activist. He fought against the wealthy. He fought for the poor. He discussed how it's hard for the wealthy to get to heaven. He fought for those that needed help. This is not the Republican Party today. This is not the Michele Bachmanns of today. They do not fight for the average individual. They do not fight for the poor. They pray to God so that Trump can get a second term. That's what they do. And it's just completely insane. All right. Not a lot to say there. Video kind of does the work for me. All right. Let me grab some chats here. Miranda Writes Left says, funny how she thought name dropping, quote, it's me, God, Michelle. Wait, did she actually say that? Or is that not a direct quote? I gotta watch that again. Funny how she thought name dropping, it's me, God, Michelle, would be the thing that would make an infallible God change his mind. It's just hilarious that anybody. I mean, it's funny that she put this online. Like, I could almost see it if she did it, by herself in her room. People pray for things all the time. Even the people that don't believe in God, they'll, in a time of need, they'll do what they think they have to. They'll pray to God and see if that works, if nothing else is working. But to put it online, that's like an extra step that really just shows you her insanity. Fly Chopper Fly says hard liquor regulated different from beer and wine is why you will see ads for beer or wine on FCC media. Okay. Hard liquor regulated differently from beer and wine. That's why you'll see the ads for beer and wine. Okay. Yeah, I don't know enough about any of this. All right. I have more stories. I do. I know. A lot of content today. Okay. I'm gonna wait on the Ben Shapiro. Maybe I'll do the Ben Shapiro after my tweets of the week, because I have not watched the Ben Shapiro clip. I don't even know what he's gonna say. I'm not sure what I'm gonna say. It may not be a video. I may have to properly prep that one, but let me do my new or old but now new tweets of the week segment that I completely forgot about. I used to do this all the time. And then I think eventually it was replaced by the weekly polling segment. Then I never went back to it. And I'll say as well, if you're on Twitter, send me tweets. If you see a tweet that stands out, you think someone made a great point, or it's a tweet that can't really be made into a news story or a video segment, but it's worth discussing, send that to me on Twitter. Just tag me in the tweet like that, and I will make note of it. All right. I think I am prepped here. I've been nursing this water for an hour. Doing pretty good. All right. All right, so I'm bringing back an old segment that I used to do, and I forgot about doing it, but I'm doing it again. Tweets of the week. These are tweets that I come across during the week. I'm on Twitter probably too much, so I come across a lot of good tweets during the week. These are ones I collect and then share later. They're ones that really can't be made into an individual video, but are points that are worth making, or maybe something funny. We got a mix of that this week. Let me start with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who, let's be honest here, has fantastic tweets. I'm not sure if she writes them all herself. I'm guessing she does, but oftentimes they are just fantastic. So she tweets out here, Republicans like to make fun of the fact that I used to be a waitress, but we all know if they ever had to do a double, they'd be the ones found crying in the walk-in fridge halfway through their first shift because someone yelled at them for bringing seltzer when they wanted sparkling. This is hilarious and so very true. And really, let's also be fair. It's not just Republicans. A lot of Democrats also fit into this as well. Most lawmakers simply don't come from a working class background. A lot of them come from wealth and privilege. In doing so, they bring a certain worldview. And even if they don't come from wealth and privilege, a lot of them end up buying into that once they get into Congress and they become part of the club. And that's the worldview they take on, because they hang around these wealthy donors and they take on that worldview and become disconnected from the average person. So AOC pointing out here that absolutely these people, it's absurd to make fun of her for being a waitress. I mean, honestly, like, I'm not sure how a politician can make fun of somebody for working a working class job and expect to have the support of voters. I mean, clearly a lot of them do, but it's because a lot of this stuff doesn't come out. And it really shows you their disdain for the average working individual. Next one here. This, I guess I should have started with this tweet, but this made me laugh. ExxonMobil here. ExxonMobil tweeting out, "We're all in this together. Glad to be a part of the oil and gas climate initiative, working collaboratively towards solutions to mitigate the risks of climate change." Oh, ExxonMobil. Oh, how good of you. Ilhan Omar here. This is the perfect image for this. Tweeting out this hilarious image with the caption, "We're all trying to figure out the guy who did this." Perfect representation of the fossil fuel industry here, pretending to be a part of the solution, when ultimately, if they want to be a part of the solution, then they should cease to exist. But of course, they're always trying to pretend to be this, consciously using fossil fuels to somehow all work together to accomplish the goal of eliminating fossil fuels. But okay, great image there from Ilhan Omar. This tweet here, this involves some reading, but I will get to that. So Stephanie Effany, great name, tweeting out, "Am I hormonal or did I just read this beautiful 1-2 punch?" So this is about Elliot Page announcing that he is transgender, and the response to this. So this is a lesson of why you need to always take the approach that somebody is uninformed when it comes to the average person, not lawmakers, but when it comes to the average person. Take the position that they are probably just uninformed, and that it is your job as somebody who is informed on a certain issue to kindly inform that person. So here, Nerd Domain tweets out, "Is this an error?" They put a picture of Ellen Page, typo maybe? And then Lewis responds saying, "Not a typo, he's Elliot Page." Nerd Domain says, "I'm not sure I understand. Please explain." Lewis replies saying, "I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and assume you're well-intentioned, LOL. His name used to be Ellen Page, but he has come out as a transgender man, so now his name is Elliot Page. They're the same person." Nerd Domain replies saying, "Oh, okay. I'm new to this. I didn't understand what was happening. Thank you for explaining. I thought it was some new meme that I missed out on. In that case, I'm going to join everyone else and say that I'm very happy for Elliot Page. I've always been a huge fan of his." Look at that. This is amazing. Look, this happens on Twitter, but I gotta say, from what I've seen from back and forth, it's pretty rare for there to be an exchange like this where somebody is just wrong about something, or may even seem like they're making fun of what has happened here, when in reality they're just uninformed, and all they need is somebody to kindly inform them, and they can go on their merry way supporting the very issue that it maybe appeared they were against or making fun of. So perfect example of that here, to always take the approach of giving people the benefit of the doubt when it comes to, the average person, someone that isn't in a position of power, like a lawmaker. When it comes to a lawmaker, they have a team of people around them. They should be informed on issues, and it's perfectly fine to go after a lawmaker, after them, with words, if they are wrong about something. Or even still, I would say, depending on the person, depending on the context, depending on what they've done in the past, maybe that lawmaker has actually done good work in the past, and there's someone who is uninformed and you can inform them. But when it comes to the average person, especially friends and family fall into this as well, take the position that they likely just don't know. And if you just kindly explain to them what the issue is, then they'll be informed. Next one here. Malika Jabali tweeting out, "Good morning, here to remind people that defunding the police is actually popular in the city that has grappled with it the most this year across all groups polled. So oftentimes you'll hear how defund the police, hurt Democrats, or it's not popular." Minneapolis here, support for defunding Minneapolis police among different groups of Minneapolis residents. Look at this. Every single group except for Republicans, and even Republicans, almost 30% support this, but support this in a big majority. So Ages 18 to 34, 88% support defunding the police. Democrats, 85%, women, 78%, black, 76%, no college, 75%, whites, 72%, college grads, 71%, men, 68%, independents, 63%, aged 65 plus, 59%, and Republicans, 27%, which still is rather high for Republicans. So showing you here that really all it takes is being informed. And also, I mean, in terms of, obviously certain cities are going to be more in favor than others depending on what has happened in their city. So it makes total sense for Minneapolis to be largely in favor of this. But again, it shows you, if you inform people about what these issues actually mean, and you inform them why that position exists, inform them on the history of it and what it would do, then people largely side with the data, with the facts, and will come to support that issue as long as the science and the data supports it. Last tweet here. Gravel Institute tweeting out number of citizens who lost healthcare coverage since the pandemic began. U.S. 14,600,000. Every other country, 0. That is, of course, because the U.S. operates under this ridiculous system where you have healthcare tied to your employer. So people that had their healthcare tied to their employer, that lost their job, there goes their healthcare. Other countries, because you have healthcare guaranteed universally, different systems here, but universal regardless. Canada, for example, single payer system would be the same as a Medicare for all system. Nobody loses healthcare because healthcare is not tied to their employer. They just have it guaranteed to them. I've discussed this a million times in the past, but since I haven't discussed it recently, let me give you, I guess, a little benefits here, or some benefits of having a single payer system. You never think about healthcare. That really is the one, like the number one benefit. Healthcare is never on my mind because if I need it, it's there. When I've been sick, I've gone to the doctor. You walk in, you show your health card. They take you in, see the doctor, and you leave. That's it. There's no exchanging of money. There's no dealing with paperwork. That's it. You just go and you leave. Same with surgery. The only surgery or the only paperwork that I had to do for surgery, I think, was like a 1 page, just describing what the surgery was and or basic questions about that. And that was it. No, negotiating or talking to health insurance companies afterwards trying to ensure this was covered. None of that because it's guaranteed to you. It's covered. So, and again, if you get sick, any walk-in clinic will take you in. People have family doctors, but if you're, if you don't have one or you're somewhere else, you can go to any walk-in clinic, see a doctor there. It's just, it's basic. You never have to think about healthcare, and it covers everything. So, though I will say on that point, it doesn't cover everything. It doesn't cover dental in Canada. We should have dental covered. Medicare for all would cover dental. Mental health, pharmacare, there's spotty coverage there. So the only issues that I have with the Canadian healthcare system is that it doesn't go far enough. It's not that it's a single payer system. The issue is that it's not just, it needs to cover more. So a Medicare for all system would be better than the Canadian healthcare system. I've discussed that in the past as well. So anyways, this was the tweets of the week. All right. I need to work on my extra there, but otherwise, that's a pretty good segment. Back to the chats. All right, should I do this Ben Shapiro thing? I have not watched it. Okay, I'm going to do it. See if there's any super chats first. Ryan Nowicki says, would a super PAC for progressives called, quote, officials against dark money, end quote, be counterproductive and only hurt progressives, or do you think it would help? Would a super PAC for progressives called officials against dark money? I don't know. I'm not the right person to ask. I feel like if you're against super PACs, then having a super PAC doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So that's kind of my position on that. I don't know. I'm not the right person though. DVDV says, hashtag Jesus is a Bernie bro. Hashtag Jesus would stand with the 99% for sure. I agree with you. Richard Brunette says, there's a channel called The Atheist God where God reacts to right-wing nuts, blasts Bachmann. It's pretty funny. Queen Enchantment says, I guess I'll pray to they God. Dear God, please get rid of anybody that voted for the Orange Monster. If you do, I'll believe in you. Mikey Kingston says, back at it again with the Baba Booey. Mikey Kingston always coming in with the Baba Booey. Big Brother Motown says, when Republicans say God chose Trump, isn't that the same God that chose Barack Obama twice when they lost their damn minds? Yes. Yes, it is. It's impossible to rationalize with these people. No, it's only God. Actually, they would say maybe that's Satan. Satan chose Obama. He won those fights. But when it's things that they agree with, like Trump winning, no, that's an act of God. It's a world I just cannot comprehend. I mean, even though I grew up religious, I grew up going to church. It was always very like religion was never a 100% thing in my house. My mom always brought up how she had different views than what the Bible had. So there was always that inherently in her belief system. It was always her still challenging and questioning what was in the Bible, what she was told. So I never, thankfully, had to experience what it would be like to grow up in a household that is just so blindly religious to not take in any other information. Nick says Trumpian is a problem that goes beyond the U.S. Today here in the Netherlands, far-right, anti-Semitic, and conspiracy theorist theory. I'm not sure how to say these names, but theory Bedeau won 75% of the vote within his party. The fight against the far right continues. Yeah, it's an issue. It's definitely an issue worldwide. And ultimately, this is why it really gets down, I think, largely to capitalism. But you have it exist regardless, even in countries that have a fairly solid social safety net. Joe Burley says, good advice when people make bigoted comments. It is helpful to act like you don't know what they mean. Quote, I don't get it. Can you explain? Yes. Good point as well. Ask people questions. If someone says something really ignorant, instead of reacting in an angry fashion, ask them what they mean by that. Ask them to explain themselves. Say like, oh, I don't understand. What do you mean by that? And then, let them explain what they're thinking or feeling, and then present your perspective, as opposed to trying to convince them on the spot, which is almost never going to happen. Occasionally you can do that, like in that tweet exchange I showed you. Rare, but it happens. But plant seeds. You explain your position, how you came to that position. That's a big part of it as well. Explaining why you think the way you do, because that helps them understand why you think that way. And then kind of just leave the conversation. Like you don't have to, try and convince that person on the spot, but plant seeds. And it's really the best way to get through to people who may otherwise be just ignorant. And it's perfectly fine to be ignorant. People have busy lives. People don't, all know what's going on in the world. They have their blind spots. I know I do as well. So it's approach the conversation like you're just a teacher, but a kind teacher. DVDV says free healthcare is like having an adequate amount of money to be able to live comfortably. If you have that luxury, you don't think about it anymore. Yeah, I think that's accurate. This thing on the left, David, are you going to cover the strikes in India? I may. I just have not read enough on it. I know that it's, from my understanding, the largest strike ever in the history of the world. So it's definitely something worth covering. But yes, I will read more into it. Gina McGrath says U.S. COVID cases and deaths are up, wages and hours are cut, the economy is in the gutter, and all conservative/reactionaries care about is Harry Styles and Elliot Page. I hate them people so much. Yeah. Hold that thought, as that, of course, will be part of my reaction to Ben Shapiro reacting to Elliot Page. All I know is that he has freaked out about it. I don't know to what extent, but let me pause in the chats there and let me find out. I'm not sure if this should be a reaction video. Since I haven't seen it, maybe I'll turn it into one. I don't know. I just brought the clip up. I'm just seeing his face alone is just already turning my stomach. All right. Don't expect any profound commentary here. This is on the spot. I have not prepped anything, but I will react to this. So Ben Shapiro, if there's one thing that sets him off, it's anything that is somehow a cultural issue, or what he makes to be a cultural issue. So today, here's another one. This is Ben Shapiro having a meltdown over Elliot Page. Watch this. Which, of course, I have not yet. So let's see what the hell he says.
Now listen, Ellen Page can identify however she wants. I don't care. Really, it makes no difference to me. She is an adult human. She can do whatever she wants. It is a free country. However, it being a free country, I am also free to point out that Ellen Page was, and shall remain a woman. Because Ellen Page is, in fact, a woman. Now, I'm happy to call Ellen Page Elliot if she wants to be called Elliot, because people change their names all the time. And you can, in fact, change your name by declaration. You cannot, however, change your sex by declaration. Or your gender by declaration. That is not how this works. There is no other area of life in which people simply declare themselves to be a thing, and everybody goes, oh, okay. Right? An objectively verifiable thing. Right there, you can declare your sexual orientation, or you can declare a thing that you like. You can declare that you're a fan of this particular band. You can declare that you have a sexual attraction to X, Y, or Z. Right? That's all subjective. And all we have to go on is your behavior, which is objective, and your subjective self-assessment. However, when you're declaring something as core as your sex, there is no objective measure whatsoever whereby Ellen Page is a man. None. Right? She is a woman. And yet we are immediately told by the media that to even address Ellen Page or Elliot Page as a she is discriminatory. It's very bad and very discriminatory. And so you end up with complete inanities and insanities. Okay, so Ellen Page declared that she is now a man. Okay? But she also declared that she is a queer man. Now, this is confusing, because if she were a queer man, this would mean that she is attracted to men, which would technically mean that she's a straight woman. Right? Because if she is an actual woman attracted to men, this would make her a straight woman. But we know she's not that because she was a lesbian. Right? So she is married to a woman, as far as I'm aware. And that means that she is a lesbian. But now she is a man. And according to her, this means that she is a white, straight male. So how is she queer? She's a white, straight male. So here is how Wikipedia tries to sum this up. You ready for this? According to Wikipedia, in January 2018, Page publicly announced his marriage to dancer and choreographer Emma Portner. So this means that Ellen Page is a gay man married to a woman, according to Wikipedia, which makes no sense at all, like in any way, shape, or form. Now listen.
All right. First up here, gender studies is not my area. So just putting that out there, as I'm not sure how much of analysis I can really give you that is adequate, but just at the base level, who cares? Thousands of people are dying every day from COVID. The numbers are out of this world. And yet I have not seen Ben Shapiro freak out about that. What he freaks out about is Harry Styles wearing a dress on the cover of a magazine. What he freaks out about is a transgender man. Who cares? How does it possibly affect your life that Ellen Page is now Elliot Page? This is why it's hard for me to care about shit like this, in terms of like Ben Shapiro videos and that kind of crap, because I don't even know where to start because I don't care at all. I don't know why anybody would care this much about all of this. The issue, But the issue with his video on this is that he is putting out hatred because of this. Why? I mean, I don't want to psychoanalyze Ben Shapiro, but clearly he has some shit going on. Clearly he has something going on. Because no regular person would freak out about how somebody decides to identify themselves. It doesn't make, to care this much about this topic doesn't make any sense. There is actual shit going on in the world. He's supposed to be a political commentator. You would think he would care about what's happening in politics. Well, people are dying. What's happening with COVID-19. But no. Or even like healthcare, anything else. Or government spending, that's his area. Freak out about that. But to care about this, I just don't get it. It really doesn't make any sense to me. Yet this is how he makes a living. This is what conservatives do. They focus so much on these cultural issues, try to make a big fuss out of tiny things like Harry Styles wearing a dress on a magazine or Elliot Page as a way to distract from the real issues. COVID-19, healthcare, public education, police brutality, whatever it is, they use cultural issues to distract from the actual issues affecting real people's lives. Low wages being another one. Why isn't he freaking out about how low wages are? About the eviction crisis? To see this much emotion over Elliot Page, it really blows my mind. All right. I'm not sure that'll be a video. There's nothing really there. It's just, he's a weird person. Man, he is so weird. All right, let me grab some chats. Gritbusters says Ben Shapi words pronouns it/its. Because he is not a person. I can see that. I need to recover from all that stupidity. Holy fuck. Who cares? Who cares? Why did people care this much? It is so weird to me. All right. That's it for chats. Let me grab some normie chats unless some more super chats come in. See what is happening here. Man, that took all the energy out of me. I was riding high until that video. Thank God if I did that video at the beginning, we'd be looking at a much different live stream today. I'm glad I waited till the end to put that on me. By the way, I know who is from my understanding, a gender studies major, or maybe not major, but maybe minor. Vosh did a video on this. I have not seen his video yet, but I'm going to watch it after this stream or at some point this weekend, because I'm curious what he has to say. Because I just don't. It's not my area at all, and I just don't. I think it's great. People want to. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me why anybody would freak out about this. It's so weird. All right. Yes. Pierre Proudhun says David's brain is in recovery mode. Absolutely. My brain is in recovery mode after taking in such high garbage ideas. Imagine if you had a big lunch, says Soren. Mm-hmm. Typical Canadian says, yeah, Shapiro ain't worth the attention. I agree. Like, it is so weird to me. God. The guy with the most annoying voice in the world, that he's the one spending his time. I mean, it's really like a protective measure to do this kind of thing. Because it's a way to distract from his own failings or his own inadequacies, to try and attack somebody else for their identity or how they look or how they dress. Like it's totally just a defense mechanism. Like, I don't think it realizes how much. I'm not sure he realizes how much it says about him that he freaks out this much about something like this. Michele Conklin says conservatives latch onto so-called cultural issues because they have no case about issues that affect large groups of people. Yeah, absolutely. Maria says today's live was short. No, it wasn't. Hour and a half is generally how these live streams go. During the primary days, occasionally I'd hit like 3 hours. I think once or twice I did that. I'm not even sure how I did that. But not anymore. Hour and a half, generally what these live streams are. All right. Probably going to go call it a day. That ruined me. I think I was hoping for something a little more comedic that I could like make fun of him for, which I could make fun of him for this, but it just took the energy out of me. It's just so absurd. All right. Thank you all for showing up. This was a great live stream. See you all next week, of course, for more Rational Live. See you later. Before I go, hit the sub, hit the bell icon, and definitely hit the bell notification icon. Get all notifications. YouTube 100% is doing something to the channel, not just my channel, but in general, independent media this week. I've noticed views have been down across the board for a lot of people. Hit that bell icon so you're notified when a new video goes live. Anyways, now, have a good weekend. See you all later.